Hey, Slinky Gang. Are you looking to score?
Little brother. I got a natural high. A supernatural high.
Oh, you got a supernatural high, huh? Well, look, Eddie Mack don't like no wackos coming through our neighborhood playing that Rain Man stuff, okay?
Big badass Eddie Mack. Got shit for brains, and that's a fact.
Are you suffering from negligence? I'll whoop your ass.
Hold up, shit, that nigga crazy, man. He ain't shit.
This nigga suffering from negligence.
Yeah, well, I got bigger problems. I can get this joint lit, and that's drug abuse. What's going on, everyone? I'm Heath.
And I'm Jay.
You're listening to Host of Horrors, podcast where we discuss and review horror films based off of predetermined themes of the month. Jay!
Hey, guys. So today we have a very, very special guest, a great dear old friend of mine, and Emmy Award nominated producer, because he doesn't like being called anything else. JK. So, he's a great friend of mine, film buddy. Also, he's also black just like me, which is honestly awesome, which is a great way to continue with Black Directors Month. And I'm just going to put it out here. He's awesome. So, introducing special guest for today, Mr. Wendell Riley. Woo! Woo!
Hello.
Introduce yourself.
Hello. Yes, I am Wendell Riley. I am black. Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here. I love horror. I love film. So this is, and talking about films by Black directors is actually something that I am diving into this month. I'm actually teaching some film appreciation courses on genre films made by Black creators. So I feel like I'm prepped and ready to go.
Can I ask you just a personal question? If you don't want to answer it, that's perfectly fine.
Go for it.
How much did Jay pay you? You were too important to be on this shitty little podcast.
No, I am actually like a big enough nerd that all you have to do is say, "Hey, we're gonna watch a horror movie and talk about it," and I'll show up, because I've always been that guy who has weird stuff on his wall, weird stuff on my shelves. And people usually go, "Man, you're kind of strange." So being able to just show up in a place that sort of looks similar to where I live is kind of cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. So it was like thousands of dollars?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Jay!
1,500.
1,500, all right.
Sure.
What are we watching, man?
Sure, let's go with 1,500. So, this movie we watched today... Wow. So comparatively speaking, a good majority of the movies we watch are from like the mid 2000s, right? This movie came out before one of our previous movies we reviewed, but yet looks amazing and way better, way more put together than this previous movie. If you don't know by now, I'm talking about how 13 Ghosts sucks.
I thought you liked that movie.
I do, but it also sucks. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Jay.
From a technical standpoint, it sucks. From a story standpoint, From a, production design standpoint, bitch, that movie is a 10 out of 10.
Hey,
anyway.
I just got done watching Archive 81, and I swear to you, 13 Ghosts is a premise Netflix needs to adapt. Just throwing that out there.
It's already been adapted like twice. I don't think it needs another one.
But not good. Look, they just need one good one, okay? One good one.
Anyway, so this movie is way better than 13 Ghosts. It is directed by ERNEST Dickerson, which if I remember correctly, is also the cinematographer for... Which movie was it again?
It's Death by Temptation, the film we'll be discussing next week.
But... I know he also started out with John Singleton?
No, he was a longtime collaborator of Spike Lee.
Yeah, he also did Juice and that Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight.
Yep.
God, Billy Zane is so good in that movie.
and a young Jada Pinkett before she became Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yeah, she you start off with this old white guy, but she basically becomes the hero at the end of the film. It's awesome.
We love seeing heroes here. So, anyway, what we're discussing today is none other than 2001's Bones, featuring Snoop Dogg in what I think is his best role yet. And the role that I feel like I'm going to permanently associate him with.
Have you seen this film before? Or
This is my first time watching it.
What about you? Have you?
I don't know that I have. I thought that I did, but a lot of it feels very new to me.
God, I love this movie so much. Mainly because it reminds me of old 70s, like blaxploitation a little bit, with the red paint for blood almost. Like it looks very goopy. Comedy mixed with horror, mixed with it's a lot of mood changes in this film, but it works so great. So good.
Not to be a Negro here, but I feel like anything I feel like we're always gonna need some kind of comedy in our horror. Like for me, it's there's always gonna have to be some kind of comedy, if anything else, to break up the tension that horror movies usually give.
Well, they say horror and comedy basically have the same setup as far as writing goes. So
one of them makes you laugh, some will make you scared, some of them both at the same time.
Yeah. But this movie's awesome.
I agree. This movie's awesome.
And it looks gorgeous, like you were saying. Like the cinematography and the lighting, mwah, top notch.
Yeah, really well shot. And what was surprising more than anything else, I grew up in the 80s. So for me, horror is synonymous with latex rubber and lots of KY jelly. And even though this movie was made in 2001, there was a lot of KY jelly and some really cool practical effects.
I did appreciate that because the CGI is a little wonky.
Yeah,
it's a little dated, but man, does those practical effects still hold up?
Yeah,
it looks so good.
Nice throwback, and there are definitely some callbacks to some iconic 80s and 90s horror films that we could get into later on. But it looks really great. But that's what you expect with Dickerson.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. Really good.
I think it's also good, me being the kind of the camera guy, seeing a cinematographer direct, because I think you can tell that he had a personal vision for what this film looks like. And of course we have Flavio Martinez Labiano, I'm sorry if I butchered that name, as a cinematographer, but I do feel like a lot of Dickerson's influence as a cinematographer came through in how this film looks and how it's shot, and the majority of the shots that we see in this film. So that's why I think I really enjoyed the most out of it, amongst a lot of other things, but that's what I enjoyed most out of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, let's dive into it. So the film opens up with this guy, this weird guy running in the street away from a dog. And he ends up running up to his little apartment, grabbing his little gun, shoots the dog, the bullet hole vanishes, it basically Wolverines himself, and then runs into this creepy little house, which to me reminds me of Amityville Horror, with just the windows and the door kind of making a face on the building itself. I thought that was cool.
We love a good haunted house.
Yeah, it reminded me of Castle Grayskull, but that's me dating myself a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it looks like a skull, and it just kind of sits in the middle of this empty lot, which makes it more creepy and ominous. I was actually thinking if this was an existing building or if this was built on a backlot, or just a facade, but I mean, it looks really friggin' cool.
Yeah, when you can give a building personality just by look alone, you're doing something right with your film.
And I think to add on to that is it both looks like it fits, and it also sticks like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
In multiple ways, because later on, after that, it goes into 1979.
Yeah, after the two guys that try to score the crack. Yeah.
See,
But
okay,
back to the
that's important, but it's also like, man,
Well, it actually is important because I think that's how Jimmy Bones starts out his
I know, but it's
his
it's
influence.
two white guys that trying to like get some blow, and I'm like, okay, whatever, because
But if it wasn't for them running away from the cops and the dog eating them,
Yeah.
I don't think the house would have had the type of spiritual energy when the guys came.
Okay, so
Afterwards. So it's a little
to
important for
explain
setup.
myself, I'm dumb. Sometimes I skip forward trying to push things forward without realizing, oh yeah, there are a lot of important plot elements. So feel free to tell me to shut up
and
at any given time.
It also
feel
sets
free.
up the
Just tell me
crack
to shut up.
situation in the neighborhood. I really enjoyed that. We'll get more into it, but I really enjoy the horror of how crack cocaine was for this neighborhood. So it sets that up as well.
It does.
Back to the building though.
That building.
Another
so
thing
cool.
it reminds me of is Candyman.
You
For
know
one
what?
reason and one reason only, it reminds me of what I call modern day Gothic, and it's beautiful. So I just want to throw that out there a little bit.
You know, I like that that comparison because I'm a really big fan of explaining how stuff like, you know, gentrification and the dilapidation of neighborhoods comes into films, because it's like this almost treats Jimmy Bones as if it's an urban legend, like a horror legend, like the C word is, like C-Man is. So I think that's like why I like this the setting up of the shot. And all right, so I do like those little thug dudes though. They're funny to me.
They were hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Like I was like, yeah, no, there were some good comic relief though. I was like, bruh.
Yeah. But you know, I think you touched on something really important. The idea of sort of the mythology surrounding the house and ultimately Jimmy Bones. Because that is such a big part of African culture and the diaspora, right? So oral traditions where essentially you pass down stories, and this is pervasive, particularly in Candyman, the original Candyman and the remake, where the story of the character gives that particular character more life. And that is a theme that we see a lot in African American cinema, African American horror in particular, but also in Black horror throughout the diaspora. And as you all may have figured out, I have an accent. So I'm not from the U.S. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. So, you know, I am a descendant of slavery, just, you know, as African Americans are. But oral traditions are, you know, different in Trinidad, but there are definite similarities as well.
Yeah.
You know, as someone who's an ADOS, but doesn't really know as much about my past, it's really interesting to hear you say that, because it's like, dang. It kind of makes me wonder what traditions and what oral traditions, what stories, what mythology that we have that's part of the diaspora that got lost to time, especially with, you know, slavery being a thing. So interesting that you put on that. Also, I'm glad that you brought up the accent, because I can hear you read a dictionary and it sounds really cool. So just putting it out there.
All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna play this audio next time. I just feel like sitting in the room. Just sit in the room and play this audio, just his part.
This is why I charge $1,500 for an appearance.
Well worth the money, let me tell you. Well worth every single penny and half my salary.
So we move on from the opening scene, which again, I always champion that the opening scene of the movie tells you exactly what you're getting into with this film. And you really do. You know exactly what you're getting into as soon as the movie starts.
I really do love the way that the further along you get into the credits, the more creepy and dilapidated the way that the camera shoots the building, the way that it's just like, it feels like it's starting to burn, the grain is starting to burn. And it starts to show just like, when you look into everything else that goes on in the movie, it's like, okay, the degradation of the film grain equals the degradation of the neighborhood itself. Because look at that, it was bustling, like back in the day from the looks of it. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
No, I love this opening so much, the credit roll, because it shows when Jimmy Bones was in charge in 1979, and the neighborhood is luscious. It like you said, it's booming, it's beautiful. Everyone's out, everyone's having a good time. And then it cuts from Jimmy interacting with the neighborhood to a guy sitting in the corner, and he starts smoking some crack. And from there, you slowly start to see the decay of the neighborhood until you get to present day, where there is no neighborhood, just the building left. And I love that just quick little that's visual storytelling without heavy-handedness.
we love some social commentary here.
Yeah, no, but it is really well done, and very restrained as well. And the cool thing about that is when a filmmaker is confident enough to do something in 2 minutes that another filmmaker would spend like 15 minutes of the film on.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you don't need much more than that to basically he just sets the markers and you fill in the gaps in your mind, and then you're off to the races. It's great. Yeah.
No, I love it when a filmmaker allows you to get the story rather than tell it to you.
Totally.
And yeah, so now we're in present day, and
One last thing, I also like the fact that I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, man.
I also really like the fact that it introduces all the characters, well, as the vast majority of them, like that. It's like that takes that 2 minutes to introduce basically the entire cast of that time as well. So I really like that.
Yeah, even if you don't know that you saw the characters, because in present day they look different, you saw those characters in those in the first 2 minutes. So definitely. So now we're in present day. You have Patrick, Taya, and Bill, their siblings, and their friend, what was it, Maurice? Poor Maurice, man.
Man, these like group, I'm assuming they're like either teenagers or like young adults. Like they got to be at least in like their early to mid 20s, like around probably around our age.
I'm gonna say college years.
Yeah,
that's what I'm gonna say. So, but they embark in this
little
business endeavor where they bought the building that we saw in the opening, and they're going to turn it into a big nightclub because Bill and Maurice are inspiring DJs. And so Patrick tells him, look, I know it looks crappy and everything, but we can fix it up. It's going to be nice. It's going to be awesome. Goes to open the door. As soon as he goes to open the door opens itself. They get in the van, they leave, end of movie, done.
See,
no, they go inside for some reason.
This is how I know it's fiction. Because
and no, if it was my ass, I saw that door open. It was like, all right, no, I'm sorry, investment lost.
Let me tell you, not the white person in the group being somewhat of a voice of reason, like. Not Tape it like, I don't know about this, guys. And then Patrick's like, it's fine. And then Maurice, his tale, I was rooting for him for maybe like 5 minutes because he saw the stuff that's going on. He saw those like bloody marks. And I'm like, come on now. You couldn't say something about those bloody marks down there. And then once they go inside, they see the place. It's like, it's already looks like a, what they call it, a picker-upper. One of them ones that they try to fix her up, and they try to like bounty picker upper. Try to fix up the place. I'm like, I don't know. This place does seem like it's a little bit beyond fixing. But you know what I'm saying?
It looks like a straight haunted house. And Dickerson and his team, they do some really nice touches. Like when they close the door, there's like dust that falls into shot, into frame. It just has all of the hallmarks of like, this is a straight haunted house. Y'all shouldn't be here. And I'm sure every like black person in the audience is probably like, why didn't you just get back in the van and leave? Because this ain't no nightclub.
Right? How much work you do? No, just stop it.
Like, I'm personally here for a golf style like nightclub because like that's my shit. I'm here for it. But like, even I know when something's beyond repair. Like I have faith in a lot. I have a lot of faith in relationships and friendships. That's how a good chunk of my friendships fail. But like
what?
I'm glad that people got a laugh out of that. That goes in the reel. So I know when something's beyond repair, and like the minute that I saw, like honestly, the minute that I saw the freaking door open, I would have left. But definitely when I saw those little like what seems to be a cat, we all know it's not a cat. Was it that? Oh, the dog or like a cat, the cat bones, and I'm like, that's a jaw. That looks like a human jaw, y'all.
That's a big ass cat.
That's
Bill.
a big old cat.
That
Like that's like a puma. And I'm like, no, I would have left, but yo, they kept on going. That it's a delusion for me. If you want to be real, I'm like, baby, I know money talks, but money doesn't talk that loud.
Well, that's the magic of movie logic, right? So these characters they see opportunity, you know.
Yeah, because it harkens with the dad. I feel like Patrick, at least Patrick, out of all of them, really wants to be like his dad as far as like having nothing and making himself, up to something. And I feel like his whole thing is he wants to prove to his dad for sure that he can do it. Is what I got.
Absolutely, and they establish him as very charismatic and sort of the leader, and people follow him even despite their instincts, right? They trust him, and he's played effectively by Khalil Kane, who actually was a Dickerson collaborator. He actually played in Juice with Omar Epps and Tupac Shakur. So it was fun to see him again, because I haven't seen him in a ton of stuff since, but he definitely, I think, was good for that role.
Oh yeah, no, all of them were like the acting for it being the type of movie that it was. I feel like they did a great job. There's like we were talking with 13 Goes. I feel like Matthew Lillard read the script and knew exactly how to act, and no one else did. These guys, they did perfectly. Perfect acting, in my opinion, for this type of movie. It was really, really good.
The acting was I would say it's very decent. I hate to say it, but once Snoop Dogg gets into the picture, I'm sorry, dog. Like he was, he was playing himself. But we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
Do you play Snoop Dogg?
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it almost feels like this movie was written for him specifically.
No, like, whenever people talk about this movie, I've only heard a handful of people talk about this movie, but it goes, oh yeah, that Snoop Dogg horror film.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what Bones is.
And you can tell that they shot and edited around the limitations of his acting ability. He doesn't really have a lot to say in the film, and when he does, it's very lyrical, very smooth. Catchphrase galore. But I think he acquits himself well. He did a lot better than I thought he would.
Okay, I'm not gonna say that like it's bad, but like when his acting ability is different, I guess I'm gonna say his acting ability is revolved around his persona of Snoop Dogg rather than trying to play an actual role. Mm-hmm. So it feels like a lot of like. As they say, it feels like an SNL sketch, but in a very, very, very good and elaborated SNL sketch. It's like they took an SNL sketch, made it like a movie, and then actually gave it money. And that's what sometimes it feels like whenever Snoop Dogg's in the picture. But like, I don't think it's to his like detriment though.
No,
it's not to his detriment whatsoever.
No.
But I can tell when they try to. Who they revolved or what they revolved around when it comes to this film, and they revolved around Snoop Dogg hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So we're introduced to our main cast, we're introduced to the house, and we're introduced to the legend of Jimmy Bones, essentially. And Taya finds the dog. That's it. That's kind of like the catalyst for everything. Other than the opening film where the dog eats the two guys, Taya finding the dog and giving him the hamburger. That's kind of our catalyst that jump starts everything.
I was confused about that one though. Like, I guess it kind of made sense later on, but it's also like, since his spirit looks like, with like how the camera does it sometimes with the seeing like the spirit, was the dog a spirit? Like, was the dog just a spirit itself, or was it? I was like kind of confused at how the dog was implemented at first, I guess.
Here's how I saw it. I saw it as the dog, and I saw it as the dog as a physical manifestation of his revenge, his vengeance. His spirit stayed on because he died in the way that he died. So instead of having a satisfactory death, and he felt so, lack of a better word, pissed off that he got betrayed by people he felt close to. His rage manifested and stayed into the home, and he needed a physical outlet to allow his physical body to come back, essentially.
Yeah, and it sort of showed the limitations of where he was at that moment, because he clearly had not been completely revived, and that is a theme throughout the film of him actually sort of reconstituting through the things that happen in the house. So I see the dog as sort of like his foothold into our plane of existence, and the dog sort of does his bidding, is him, but is just kind of like his emissary a little bit. It sort of reminds me of if you think back to Bram Stoker's Dracula. Dracula takes the form of other creatures, but he also has control over creatures. So it's that kind of weird line where after a while, if you just don't think about it too much, you'll be just fine.
You're right.
Essentially, yeah.
It kind of gives like manifestation of like, I'm not gonna say evil, like how Michael Myers is supposed to be like the manifestation of evil at first in Halloween, but it's kind of more so like it kind of gives like maybe in a way like yokai or something like that. Like I don't know why it kind of reminds me of yokai, but it does. It's like here's like Jimmy Bones, and here's Jimmy Bones' familiar. It's just kind of like like chilling.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it gives. Like, is this familiar?
You said yokai, and I immediately went to what are those little things? The raccoon dogs, tanukis.
Oh, Tanuki.
I immediately went to a really fucked up tanuki.
You know what? I wonder if Ernest Dickerson was an anime fan back in the day. I feel like he had the money to be one back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Or in the early 2000s, because
So we got the remaining cast, Bill and I cannot think of his name.
Maurice.
Don't know why I can't think of that. Bill and Maurice, they go out and they start bringing stuff into the home. They're trying to figure out their DJ booth. At this point, we are now introduced to Cynthia and her mom, Pearl.
Man, do I love me some Pam Greer, y'all. I think she was one of my favorite characters because I feel like I emotionally related to her the most, but I'm also like the lover type person. So I'm like, the more that gets revealed about Pearl, you're just like, girl, I get it. I understand you. I feel you. Like, I see you. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm like, dang. You kind of makes the hesitance with, not being around there kind of obvious. Especially when they linger on certain shots, especially when it comes to her shop. It kind of makes it, I'm not going to say obvious that she got something to do with it. But the way that I feel like the film kind of does its foreshadowing, it's pretty clever, if not like kind of by the books. It's like, okay, you may or may not see it from a mile away if you're not paying attention, but if you're just kind of like watching it like casually, it's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. But if you peer more into it, it's like you can see the little tidbits of what they're trying to do in order to show you how, like, to push the plot forward without trying to really show it. We're trying to like tell you that the plot's moving forward.
Yeah, and I think she is important for the audience as well, because she is sort of that connection to the audience that gives permission to see Jimmy's humanity, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's very clear from early on in the film that the spirit of Jimmy Bones is a vengeful spirit. But what makes the film work is the slow reveal of his demise when he was human, and her character is the one that grounds that the idea that they were in love, and they ultimately bring it full circle at the end of the film. And Pam Grier, I think, is a good choice for that because of the fact that she is a very very graceful actress. She plays things with nuance, and she has a fantastic screen presence, and she's gorgeous as well. So that helps.
Absolutely.
I think it also helps with Pam Grier that this is, like I said, similar to blaxploitation films, because that's where Pam Grier got her name, is during that era. So, seeing her in an afro and all of that, it brings you back. It really does bring you back to those times. So I think Pam Grier was the perfect choice in order to play someone who kind of bridges that current gap between 1979 to 2000 to present day.
Yeah.
And I just now thought of something. I just noticed that Taya, whenever she got the dog, named them Bones.
Yeah.
Remember in House? How far did you get in Houseu? If you remember, or are you okay with spoilers?
Go ahead, spoil it.
Okay, so remember how, whenever was it Gorgeous got the Blanche?
Yeah.
Same thing.
Nope.
It's
different.
It feels like it's a similar.
No, different, because she named him Bones after they talked about the story of Jimmy Bones.
Yeah, but it feels. I guess it's because I'm thinking about it because I'm weird. It kind of gives similar energy, not the same, but it gives a similar energy.
But it's not the same because she named Blanche without knowing that the cat's actual name is Blanche. She named the dog Bones simply because of the urban legend. Different. Similar, but different.
I mean, before you realize that, it's actually him. Same thing that, it's kind of, the cat's like that fucking cat. So
I'll let you have it, Jay.
So, but
just fucking.
You see what I mean, though. You see what I mean. But
we're also introduced, or this is where we see the attraction that Patrick has for Cynthia, and Cynthia in return with Patrick.
Yeah, can I just before we get to that, can we go back to the scene with the dog Bones?
Yeah.
Not the dog Bone, but
which one?
The dog whose name is Bones.
The dog Bones.
If I opened a door and saw a dog with like glowing red eyes,
yeah,
I wouldn't offer it my hamburger, right? Yeah. But that's just that's just me. But it's a nice cultural contrast within the film because this is a primarily African American cast. I love the fact that there are biracial characters in there. And one of the characters actually refers to himself as post-racial, which is really cool when you think about it back in 2001, because now we're still having conversations about what post-racial actually means. But I will say, seeing a creepy animal and trying to befriend it is not something that I think many Black audiences sit there and go, yeah, I get that. We always kind of look at it and go, what the hell are you doing, man?
But
yeah, that's some white people shit. I'm being honest with that one guy, but that is some white people shit.
Honestly glad that it was the white girl who introduced that aspect up there. And I also, speaking of the house, that aspect, I really, really, really like this shadow play that this movie employs, because holy crap, the shadows just look so amazing, and the way that they utilize shadows is Dickerson, I need you to make more stuff, please, because you're doing an amazing job.
Yeah, no, he's a great director.
I need him to direct more things, because it's like more movies, please do. Because I know he's done a few episodes of The Walking Dead, you said?
Yeah, and I want to say he's done some Game of Thrones episodes as well.
Child, that's probably the only good episodes.
I'm going to check that.
They're probably the only good episodes of Game of Thrones, because, child, Game of Thrones is rough.
Yeah, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I watched one episode, the first episode of Game of Thrones, and I said, nah, not for me.
Well, he's done stuff like The Man in the High Castle.
Ooh, that is so good.
Yeah. Raised by Wolves, which is on HBO. Yeah. He's been doing stuff. You've seen his work throughout the years.
So let's get back to the plot.
Yeah, so we get exposition as we're walking with Cynthia and her mom. You got Patrick and Maurice. They're helping carry groceries to the mom and daughter's place, which is a psychic shop. They do tarot readings, seances, palm readings, stuff like that. The mom says, don't feed the dog, because she sees Taya with the dog. Don't feed the dog, so we know feeding the dog is bad now. We know something's odd because the mom doesn't like them being at the house, tells the daughter not to go anywhere near that home, and that they should leave if they, know what's good for them, and yada, yada, yada.
And old dude across the street is all like, what the hell you doing that damn dog?
I love old dude across the
Man,
street. He was hands down my second favorite character. I loved him.
I was like, what y'all doing to the damn dog? Get rid of that dog. Shoot it. I was like, normally I'd be like, please don't shoot the dog. But I was like, okay, maybe you got a point though.
That was one of my favorite lines, is after the guy says shoot the dog and Pam Greer shows up and it was like, don't feed that dog. Bill's like, wow, people in this neighborhood really don't like dogs, do they?
Yeah, I love too that the way he engages with the outside world is with his rifle. Like every time he looks out the window, he has his gun in his hand. I'm like, dude, come on, man.
I mean, considering all that happens to him, I don't blame him. But I'm also like, this goes also like kind of shows like certain neighborhoods, because like they show that is this New York? This is New York, right?
They don't really say.
Yeah,
actually.
it's unclear what city it's actually in, which I like, because it's like any inner city in the U.S., any blighted inner city in the U.S.
Yeah, you kind of just pinpoint it. Like if you want it to be in New York, it's in New York. If that's what you feel like, so it's nice that way.
I guess it's because the whole like nosy neighbor kind of thing. That's kind of what he gives, the nosy neighbor that basically acts as if a voice of reason.
Well, he also kind of seems like a bodyguard, in my sense, like the guard of the house, because that's all that's there is that one building, and even like the buildings across the street, where his apartment is, are boarded up, most of them.
Yeah.
So it's like he is staying there in that dilapidated neighborhood simply to guard that building.
And same with Pam Greer's character as well, because she's basically like right down the street. So I did really like the idea that they knew that like evil lived in that house, or there was an uneasy spirit there, and whether consciously or subconsciously, they ended up staying where everyone else around them left. Yeah. I mean, she's trying to run this business, and they actually make a joke about it. Is that, she can't be that good of a psychic if like this is where she's doing her business.
Mm-hmm. But it kind of just goes to show like the obvious connection to the house that they have, which this kind of gives the same energy as like a lot of haunted house-esque movies, whereas like the people involved with things with the going on to the house, they have a connection to the house somewhere, and then you have these outsiders that come that they apparently have some kind of connection too. So that's kind of I think where the paint by numbers aspect comes in when it comes to the story. But I like the way this goes because Black people. So I'm gonna bring that up a lot because like I like the fact that Black people are like it's majority Black cast. I love that shit.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we move on from there and we go to Bill, Taya, and Patrick's home, which is it seems like either a gated community or a suburb. Away from the inner city.
Oh yeah, because they talk about it, talking about with the Roseman Park.
Yeah, something like that.
And how, they're talking about how Patrick's family basically just moved from there to Roseman Park in order to escape everything going on. And I'm like,
yeah, it's revealed that the dad and Patrick, when Patrick was real young, left that neighborhood and moved there. So yeah.
So it also shows I think Patrick's the oldest.
Patrick is the oldest.
Yeah.
It's never made clear, but so they do explain that Patrick's mom died, and his dad remarried. So the way I see it is you got the dad and Patrick, and then you got the mom and Taya, and then Bill is Patrick and the new mom kid, and that's how I see the age dynamic.
Nice little blended family we got there.
Well,
Yeah, very progressive for a film in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? Considering it's 2001, it does feel pretty progressive.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically the explanation there. We also get that quick scene of the dog eating, which every time the dog eats, it's meat related. There's always some sort of meat to it.
Well, Pearl did say that it gets hungrier, so I'm like, like hearing that and seeing how much meat he eats is like, okay, something that's one hungry dog first of all, and it kind of just like it kind of gets hungrier and hungrier. It's like you're like yearning for something. It's almost like you're getting sustenance for whatever reason, which we find out later.
Yeah. So we move on. A couple of days go by. Yes.
But we also got to talk about the whole that little conversation with the dad, Bill, Jeremiah. That's the name. Jeremiah, Bill, and Patrick, because that's important as well because it goes to the disappearance of the frat boys. It goes to the disappearance of them getting eaten up, and the dad, Jeremiah, was all like, "Yeah, no, when you can go where you're not supposed to, shit happens," and you're just like,
"See,
fair."
That actually, you're right, because I almost did gloss over a really key important fact. The dad talks to the detective after that. But they get a knock on the door after that conversation you were just talking about, and it's the detective. The one we saw in the beginning of the film that was like, leave that old building alone. Don't go in there talking to the rookie cop. And he has a weird conversation with the dad talking about said building had got bought and wanted to ask the dad who previously owned it, his business owned it, why he sold it. And the dad has no idea. He was like, I never even knew we sold it, but what does it matter? It's been, this many years. It's out of our hands. We shouldn't care about it. So we now establish a connection between the detective and the dad that we don't know about yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that does happen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, something is definitely amiss.
Like I said, I can hear your voice all day. And talking about that...
Like audio chocolate.
Yeah, that I'll just lean in and do one-liners for the rest of the way.
I think another thing to talk about is the fact that they're actively trying to hide the fact that they bought the building.
Yeah, from the dad.
The dad.
Yeah.
And that was like the key piece of information also that I was trying to point out. But
it also, I think that speaks a little bit to, and I'm gonna get a little bit existential here, but that speaks to, I think the fear of the loss of community when black people move out from predominantly black neighborhoods and into a suburban environment, because you can tell that the dad is very consumed by his work. He's sitting at the table and he's like smoking a cigar and he's like looking at some paperwork and stuff like that.
Very fathers knows best.
Yeah, and the kids are just kind of like sitting around and they're goofing off and he's like, keeping them in check, but he's sort of engaged, but not really engaged. And you can tell that there's a generational disconnect between them, so much so that, his sons are basically sneaking around behind his back with a scheme that ultimately they're trying to make him proud by doing this stuff. And it's a nice juxtaposition when you think back to like the flashbacks from the 70s where like everybody's out on the sidewalk, they're all like looking at each other and they're smiling and they're engaging with each other. You could extrapolate in your mind what the family unit would look like in an environment such as that versus this colder suburban existence that they have.
Yeah, it's very, very, I hate to say like white collar versus blue collar, but that's the vibe it gives to me personally. Because a blue collar family is a family that's tight knit. They have communications. They tell each other about their day. Or a white collar family, the dad's been working all day. He just wants silence. I have kids. Yeah, do your homework. Do better in school, but leave me alone at the same time. Kind of vibes.
Yeah, I mean, his kids are off in their mystery machine and they're sleeping in a haunted house, and like there's no mention of that. Like the mom or the dad, like they're just like, "Hey, you're here, and now there's a dog here. Like, what's going on with the dog?" They don't even ask like how the kids are doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're just concerned like, why is there a dog eating my steak? You know.
Why is there a dog eating my steak and Maurice in the fridge? Why am I always feeding this extra
Yeah,
kid?
exactly. The bottomless pit, but it's Maurice.
You know, it is funny because like it almost gives like Mystery Machine like the mystery gang, and obviously Maurice is Shaggy.
They even have a dog.
They even have a Scooby. So
Black Scooby Doo.
Wow, this movie just got a whole much better in my head now.
It's the live action adaptation we deserved.
Yeah, all right, you're
and
welcome.
didn't know we had.
So with that, I'm out. That's it. I'm done.
So we're not talking about Scooby Doo no more. Okay.
Well, no, I mean, I just gave you the Scooby Doo reference, and I feel like that's
he
that's
just
about
contributed enough.
exactly. That's about as good as I can get tonight. So I should leave now.
Damn, you're expensive.
Quick, Jay, pay him another 15. God.
That was half my salary. Can you not? That's more than I'm making 3 months. 10 months of my hard-earned cash is gone. Down the drain.
So if you guys
God.
want Jay to keep his apartment, go to our Patreon. Just joking.
If y'all want to, we'll set up a donation link right now so we can get more guests on here. And
Don't let
I don't
Jay
have
be
to
homeless.
homeless J fund, y'all. You know,
So
in the arms of a J. I'll be here all week.
oh god. So we move on.
They'll be here all week, y'all.
We move on to them actually building and working on the house. And you get a bunch of different little scenes. Like, you get Patrick starting the furnace, getting that going. And it's kind of like almost like the heartbeat of the home coming to life as soon as he does that.
Yeah.
That's really when things start getting freaky there.
I don't know why I thought they turned on the furnace earlier. No, I'm pretty sure they turned on the furnace earlier, didn't they? It was like the first time they're in the house.
No, I think this was the time when they do it, and
Yeah,
is this
'cause
when
they-
the pipes start bleeding and all of that?
Yeah.
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 Oh, yeah, the pipes did start
It's
bleeding.
rust.
It's
Hey,
rust.
there
Yeah,
be
it's rust.
rust.
Yeah.
Man,
I hate that.
that is some very, like, very just liquidy rust. It's like,
Yeah, man.
man.
No, what I love is them sitting there touching the pool of blood
Yeah.
in the middle of the floor, talking about the house is pulsating and feels like a heartbeat. Then they go downstairs to figure out where it's coming from, and like the pipes are bleeding, and old dude's like, "Yep, that's rust. I know rust, and that's rust."
Ain't Cynthia in here too?
Yes, Cynthia
And
shows up
Cynthia
at this point.
and Cynthia's all like, I should not be here, but yeah, I'm still here because I want dick, and I'm like, I'm here for it. But at the same time,
Well-
I'm like, because the chemistry, baby, the
No,
chemistry was there.
Don't get me wrong, the
That
chemistry,
chemistry was mwah.
there. But I also feel like she lived a very sheltered life with her mom. That's what that gave to me is like,
Yeah.
you know, because she knows better. She's even having vision. When she gets there, she sees Jimmy Bones. She has visions. She knows things are fucked up in this place, and she still keeps coming. So I
And-
feel like it's a combination between that romantic tension and that kind of mom's telling me not to go here, so I'm going to go here.
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of rebellion, and just to touch on the house talking to her, that had a real Amityville horror vibe, you
Yes.
know, where like the house is basically telling you like, yeah, this shit is fucked up, like bad stuff is going to happen. So please stick around, right? And they do. They're like, it's just rust.
Bad stuff's about to happen, but that guy, though, Patrick,
Yeah.
And then they lead everything down to this locked room that earlier in the film was being teased. Of course, with the spirit running around. And I love spirit work so much because I love the way that it just goes freehand. And it really gives a sense of like, oh, there's somebody watching. And I just really love that. I really, really do love how that camera work was done. I'm
Did
just
you
going to
notice
say.
the spirit vision changes colors the more the movie progresses?
Oh, I was going to touch on that later because the use of color, especially in the second, like the last act of the film, bussin'. Like, I can't even think of any other word. Like, I adore. I'm a color person. I love using colors to signify different locations, moods, and all of that. And I think that was just the creme de la creme of color use when it comes to like the change, because it was honestly it became like a whole like genre shift halfway through.
Oh yeah. But I liked how the further along Jimmy Bones was basically manifesting, because the vision, the spirit vision started out, I want to say green at 1st, then it moved to purple, and then the final one was red before he actually comes to life, almost indicating that he's gaining power.
Yeah, it's you know, and again, not to get too like deep into symbolism and stuff like that, but it showed like the it's almost like an intensity in terms of heat, because even the exterior shots at the beginning of the film, they had a very kind of blue-green tint to them, the initial shots of the building and stuff like that. And as the film progresses, it gets warmer and warmer and warmer until the climax where, you know, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but it's just lots of red surrounding them, right? Not just the blood. Almost like a body going from cold to warm.
Yeah, something coming to life.
Totally. Yeah. It's like King's description of his version of The Shining versus Kubrick's, where King said, you know, my version of The Shining is like it's hot, like it is scorching, and it, like, if it had a color, it would be red. Kubrick's version, the film version that everybody loves, is much colder, slightly more detached, and has more blues. Well, the exterior shots, there's some red in there, but yeah. Anyway, color is a big deal, and so I agree with you, Jason.
We did gloss over a quick thing, and it's just the detective with what was his name? J Mac something. The crack dealer.
Yeah.
I just thought of that. We glossed over that real fast. It's not a huge deal, but it does indicate that
it's more character development.
Well, the detective that knows Patrick's dad is also a dirty cop for this drug dealer. So it kind of it's
important, because it goes to show how there's no character here that's basically wasted.
Yeah.
Every character here has a purpose, even the ones that die.
And it's your guys, the two guys that sold the drugs to the frat guys.
Man,
it's his crew.
It's Jimmy Mac's crew.
Eddie Mac's
crew.
Yeah.
And like I said, it just goes to show, not one character here is like wasted. Everyone here is here for a reason, and I believe that it goes to show like everyone has its place.
Yeah,
and every film,
his girl, Snowflake.
Yeah,
I can't think of her name, but like, just he calls her Snowflake. Even she had personality. Something that should have just been a throwaway. Oh, that's his woman. You know, whatever.
Right.
A throwaway character. They still had time to give her personality.
And I like things where characters are utilized and aren't like really just wasted, or they're like one and done. I really do like films like that, because I'm a big sucker for like having like how characters just kind of they come across each other. It's like the whole degrees of separation thing, and especially when it comes to like a lot of things attached to this neighborhood, it's always like everyone is 6 degrees of separation from each other. Yeah. Everyone's gonna either know each other or know of each other, or like know someone that knows somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, in addition to that, the geography of the film is actually very, very contained. It takes place, essentially, it feels like it takes place on one street in a neighborhood. And the only other location that we go to, I believe, is the house in the suburbs. I don't know if we actually go anywhere else. There may be some alleys.
There's an exterior shot when they're on the highway, but that simply shows that they're leaving
the
city.
It's just a
transitional, So
yeah.
it shows that disconnect, that distance. But other than that, that's it.
Yeah, the film has a surprising amount of intimacy, and it spends quite a long time establishing and building characters. Like, we don't get our first kill until about 55 minutes into the film.
Yeah.
Outside of the opening, right? But once we establish the main characters, like the film spends a lot of time just taking care of the story, which is refreshing in a horror film.
Yeah, especially they don't do that nowadays anymore. They don't not only the taking the time with the story and having a slow build up to a climactic finish, but also small part-time characters, side characters, nothing characters having personality and being part of the movie. Other than comedies, they really don't do that, and even most comedies nowadays don't take the time to establish every character.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that just as a story standpoint, not necessarily a film, but just a story standpoint. It's hard to write something and make a character that really doesn't have any lines, but still give them a personality.
Yeah, and that's always the and you can make a case that this has elements of a slasher film, right? The challenge with slashers is that there's a point where you sometimes end up rooting for the villain instead of the characters, and you just want to see how they die, right? You see them get killed. So it's always great when you see a film that takes time to build the characters so that when they do eventually meet their brutal demise, like being splattered on a wall in a perfect blood silhouette, you go like it means something, because as an audience you have at least some level of investment in who they are.
Yeah. No, it's so good. I'm glad you brought up the slasher element, because Jimmy Bones actually reminds me a lot of Freddy Krueger, even down to him having his own song.
Oh, 100%. I mean, the film, if you think about it, it has the exact same theme of A Nightmare on Elm Street, where the kids are paying for the sins of the parents.
Yeah.
And, we'll get to the big reveal about why Jimmy Bones is who he is now. But throughout the film, I kept thinking that, like, this does totally feel like A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, yeah.
Thank you for bringing up the fact that some people just root for the antagonist, because my God, did I root for the antagonist for a while. like after everything, after the climax started to shift everything, I was really rooting for Jimmy Bones, like, for real.
I wanted him to win.
Like, it was giving me like
to be perfectly honest, he should have won.
Like, it was giving me like halfway between, like, it giving me Black Panther, where you want to root for T'Challa the whole time, but it's also like, no, maybe Killmonger. Exactly, yeah. Killmonger got a point, yeah. And I'm like, this is what is given to me, except like it's amplified because like people are dying, more people are dying here. So I'm like, yeah, I feel you, Jimmy Bones. I understand. I get you.
Before we move on
that girl
to the
is
plot, I do want to bring up something that's not super important, but it's when Cynthia goes to sleep.
One of my favorite scenes in the film. The Cynthia scene was my personal favorite.
I loved it. Just the walls turning black,
yeah.
Then bodies forming, and then them coming out of the wall with that KY jelly slime. Reminded me of Alien so much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. It felt like a hive. But yeah, just, and some really cool prosthetic work on some of the faces. They were elongated. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of times these days they would, they just use CG for that. And it sort of takes you out of it. There's something really cool about tactile horror, right? Where you see, like, everything's done in camera. And those are the more successful elements of this film. This is a very interesting period in horror cinema in particular, because this is that crossover period where you see films trying to use CG, and it doesn't quite work, because it's the technology is not there enough at those budget levels for it to work visually, and it really does take you out the film. So I love the fact that Dickerson, whether because of budget or whether through like artistic restraint, he blends even within certain scenes, like when the guy gets stabbed with all these CG shards of glass, they immediately cut to him stuck to the wall, but those are practical effects, right? So it brings you back into it. So yeah, I'm all about that stuff, man. I grew up in the 80s watching like Carpenter stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And considering that, and I hate to keep shitting on 13 Ghosts, but considering it's the same year, this movie looks 1,000 times better than 13 Ghosts.
yeah, when did the remake of The Haunting come out? I think it was around the same time as well.
I want to say 99.
Okay, and that was just like
was
all
awful.
CG, and it was
horrible.
gross. It was unwatchable. But I saw that
Because
in
that has the
theaters.
scene where Owen Wilson gets his head decapitated
Yeah.
and starts like walking all over the place.
Oh,
It's just
brutal.
God, terrible.
Yeah.
Millennial horror. That's about basically what I'm gonna call it. Millennium horror. It feels like it does feel transitional, and it also kind of gives us a unique perspective because we were kids. So a lot of times, if we see those as kids, it's different from when we see them as adults. As for you, you're already an adult, so it's like it's a different perspective on how this era of horror was depicted and how it shows in your mind as compared to how it actually is, like critically and technically and
Yeah, absolutely. I really struggled with a lot of the films during this time simply because of the level of CG in it. I still struggle with horror that has a bunch of CG because if your mind immediately registers something as being created in a computer, it's just really hard to stay with it. Like a ghost that's made in a PC just doesn't scare me,
Yeah. To me, it all depends on like the tone you're going for.
Yeah.
Like with this movie, the CG didn't bother me.
Right.
It looks bad, but it doesn't bother me because they're going for this goofy,
Sure.
campy kind of tone. Where like 13 Ghosts or The Haunting or something like that, they're trying too hard to be serious.
Yeah.
With these bad graphics.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't work.
13 Ghosts? Serious? Girl.
It tried to be serious. You didn't take it serious because no one can take it serious, but it tried.
Anyway, I realized that about the Cynthia scene that it starts out pretty weird, but it also gives it a good catalyst towards from I forgot what I'm about to say, because that also goes along in tandem with the seance that Pearl was giving too.
That's right.
And when Cynthia's already kind of spooked out because like she was about to go like Bangtown, and she sees like all the spirits, and that she has visions.
Well, she didn't want to go to Bangtown.
No. But she was trying to go to Bangtown.
No,
and then she ended up getting,
she got turned off in the middle of it, and she's like, I can't do this
because there was a shadow that went up.
Right, that's right.
Yeah,
they were kissing.
Yeah. Because like it was about to happen, and I was like, come on, get that dick. And then I was like, oh. Yeah. Never mind. And then it goes to show because it was about to be like, oh, I was like, that part kind of made me uncomfortable in the way that I feel like everyone sees it. It's like, like she's getting basically like molested by freaking ghosts.
That was an assault. Yeah,
and
for sure.
It's just like I hate that. I hate to say it because like it's basically like my most hated scene and my favorite scene at the same time. Artistically, when it goes to her just like being in the blood, that was a beautifully shot scene. But juxtaposing that with the seance and her basically getting molested, it puts a weird taste in your mouth because it's like it shows how it's almost as if it's like an unnecessary step to show how fucked up things are, but it also I feel like goes to show not only Cynthia's connection but Pearl's connection because as an extension of her mother.
Well, her laying in the blood was actually the seance, what the mom was seeing during the seance, or at least that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
Because it kept switching back and forth with her getting molested, her being attacked, and the mom having the seance, and then after the mom, you would see her calm, relaxed, drowning in the blood, and then boom, back to the assault again.
Yeah, I think the assault was a creative misstep, particularly when you think about who she's revealed to be at the end of the film.
Yeah.
That just makes it weirder. So, but we'll get to that, right?
Yeah. So the mom, after the seance, she immediately knows what this means. She runs and she gets her daughter out of there. After that, she looks at the kids and says, if you want to be alive by the end of the week, and she gives a time frame, if you want to be alive by the end of the week, you need to get out. And
honestly, she gave it a day.
Huh?
She gave it a day.
Oh, she gave it a day?
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the day? Oh, shit.
And yeah, no, that was freaky. And then like I was kind of upset because I was like, oh, she's gonna think Patrick did something, and I was like, because she came out in her basically her underwear and like there was no shirt. I'm like, oh, that
care.
I don't think she cared, but at the same time, I was like, see other people who look around and be like, why is she running out? Like they're gonna obviously think that like the guys did something. Like from seeing that from outside looking in.
Yeah, but mom was just like,
Pearl knew what was up.
I don't want my daughter dead.
Yeah, I think she knew that it was way more than just just boys being terrible humans to women at that point. And I did like there's a lot of restraint in scenes like this because, like you said, they could have played that much more lasciviously. Like they could have made it into a whole thing between her and Patrick, but they don't. They just it's like she wakes up. They make a point to have her realize that it was only a dream. And he's not anywhere near her that she could mistake it for he was actually messing around. So I think that was cool. And that shows that the film is intent on sticking to the story and telling the story, right? So even though there might be a few missteps here and there, it is very deliberate in moving us through the plot from point to point to point.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Cynthia's out of there, and at this point, it's daybreak. And Patrick is super eager to show his dad what he has accomplished. And he knows his dad's going to be proud of him. He just feels it in his bones that he knows his dad's going to be proud of him. Well, his dad makes a point that he knows what neighborhood they're driving through. And he realizes that. And you can see him starting to get like a little concerned, a little anxious. And then they pull up to the building. And this was probably, in my opinion, the best acted scene in the entire movie, was the dad yelling at Patrick to get the fuck out of this neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Oh, yeah, he's great. And you could tell, like, he loses it, and, he's, like, gesticulating, and then, like, this is where the film also takes a shift in tone, because it goes from being... as far as a film with like blood that people mistake for rust can be, it is slightly restrained, but tonally it gets more broad from this point forward, because I think at this point, as an audience, but also the characters within the film, they realize the stakes within the last 5 or 10 minutes of the film that we have just witnessed. The stakes are established as really, really high at this point. And this is when the dad figures out that his sin is staring him in his face, and it is impacting the thing that he wants to protect more than anything else, which is his son, and then, of course, his other kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's also established because the neighbor pokes his head out. No words are said, but he pokes his head out, stares at the dad, and the dad stares at him back. So, boom, another connection.
Yeah.
Right there. So, yeah, I think we could just skip forward just a hair to where they open the nightclub.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the nightclub's
nightclub,
open.
lots of green, lots of colors, dancing all around, trying to get some tonight. Because I love the dance. I love the night scenes in the millennial era, because it's like you can just tell that they're just like clubbing along. Like even from crappy movies, I just really like the dance scenes, because it's just like it really drops you into that time and era where it's like they were just like clubbing. And I wish I was one of those people that were clubbing in the 2000s, because it just looks like a lot of fun. Like lots of fun.
It was all right.
was that?
It was alright.
That was fun.
Oh, okay. But I just really like stuff like that. And then
honestly, with the amount of work they had on their hands, they pulled it off.
They
That club
did.
looked pretty okay.
That was some some HGTV stuff that they did. 'Cause they got lights and a sound system in there. I was like, all right.
I mean, I think it's
They had that
like
guy with the chainsaw in the elevator.
yeah.
that they were ready. Like I feel like they already had like a good chunk of stuff available, and they're just trying to find a place to put it. But I'm also like, where y'all get this money from to get this? Where to get this money from in the first place to get this? But that's also probably like movie magic.
I'm gonna
Like
say Daddy's Trust Fund.
Because I don't think I
Yeah.
want to know.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm just being honest. I'm gonna say Daddy's Trust
Not
Fund.
them being trust fund kids. That just makes it
they-
even funnier.
But they totally were. I mean, he's got a fully like decaled van. Like,
He
he's
has a
driving around,
Lexus.
like you're driving around in a van like that. You either have to be like crazy and like you work,
Work somewhere high up.
or
Well,
or
they-
like you work and that like all your money goes into that van,
Mhm.
or you have a rich dad.
Yeah, because I mean, literally, it's just they're pursuing their dream.
Yeah.
No other aspect that you don't even see them like struggle for anything.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
So they're trust fund kids.
it kind of makes the plot goes a little bit. It makes a little bit more sense considering like when it comes to Patrick's ambitions compared to like his dad's. So it makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
if they're trust fund babies. Which bitch, I wish I was too. But yeah, no, that dance club scene, I was a big fan of it, and it goes on, you're dancing. Man, Cynthia,
She's back.
she's back, and I'm like, this Matrix, I forgot what the
I
third
don't
second
know,
one,
but
reloaded looking
She
ass
looked
look,
good.
and like back up against this like green like textured layout. I was like,
and then like the chain, like you had like the chain wall or whatever, like the
Yes.
holes through the,
Yeah, it
the
was
lights
like-
coming through.
like-
peak production design.
Club Zion is what I call that sequence in the Matrix. Yeah.
That's
So
it.
Good.
I loved it, and
And then we have Maurice, and he finds a very attractive woman that shows an interest into him.
but remember, it is not actually the very attractive woman that we think it is.
No, it is not. It's Dog. It is Bones, not Jimmy Bones, but Bones the dog.
Bones the dog, yeah.
Ooh.
A more powerful version, right? Because
we do show because he's eating more. Like
Right.
It does start with the guys. He eats the guys,
Yeah.
but we don't know how long that took to eat.
right.
But it does start the visually showing him eating. It starts with a small hamburger,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes to a steak being cut up. Then it shows like a big pound of ground beef.
Yeah.
And every time he eats, you see the skeleton, because the skeleton they first find, it's fleshy. It's got like it doesn't look like it's been decomposing very long, and then muscle tissue starts growing and stuff like that every time he eats.
We also glossed over the fact that Maurice's dumbass managed to take from the skeleton as he was reciting the legend of Jimmy Bones, the switchblade. He didn't take the switchblade,
He didn't
but
take the switchblade, but
he
the
took
ring.
the diamond ring, and I'm like, bro,
Yeah.
I was rooting for you, but no, you have to be horny and
He got horny, and then he got ate.
Mm.
'Cause the sexy lady turned into the dog, and
Which-
the dog ate the Maurice.
Which I really enjoyed as a scene because I'm just a big fan of that little temptation, that little like temptress like thing where you see like a little at the last like what to say, I forgot, last little leg or something, and then you just have him follow. It's like literally like a cat and mouse game.
And you knew that he was done. Like the minute she turned and looked at him on the dance floor, you're like, oh, this fool's gonna die.
This fool's gonna die, and he's gonna have death by snoo.
Yeah.
I need to talk about this because this was my favorite scene. It made me laugh so fucking hard.
All right.
Bill's tired. Bill needs a tag out. So he's like, yo, Patrick, go find Maurice. Patrick goes up to find Maurice, finds the dog eating Maurice. The dog looks up at him, and the dog's face turns into Snoop Dogg's face and tells him to get out.
Yeah. And then proceeds to just vomit like a
Maggots on him.
ton of maggots. So can I just jump in here and say I miss maggots in horror films. Like if you grew up in the 80s, like 1 in 5 horror films was like it had some maggots in it. This is where this whole construct within this third act of the film is very much like Hellraiser, which is one of my favorite films. Where so in Hellraiser, and I I'm sorry if I'm spoiling it for those of you who haven't seen Hellraiser, but blood actually precipitates his escape from hell, and the blood is actually sort of like absorbed by the house, right? And then his body literally reconstitutes, and they parallel that here in Bones as well, where like the house is sort of like drinking the blood and feeding Jimmy Bones as he reconstitutes, and you see his flesh and stuff kind of reforming as he's laying in the basement. And then they layer in a bunch of maggots, which is cool as hell. So like you could tell Dickerson is like paying homage to a lot of the films that were influential to them. This is definitely like gross out horror. This is not like, psychological stuff. Like this is just balls to the wall. And like this is literally a dog yelling at you and then vomiting maggots in your face.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of like Sam Raimi.
Yeah, totally.
Like that dog part with the maggots.
Yeah.
It reminds me of either Evil Dead 2 or mainly Drag Me to Hell.
Oh,
reminds me a lot of that.
Oh, yeah, totally. And then we have a maggot hurricane in the club.
Maggot rain shower going on.
Oh,
I can see from your face, Jason, you did not enjoy the maggot scene.
I just seeing like a hurricane of maggots, just like it and I'm usually not like really like receptive. I'm usually receptive to like bugs and stuff, but it's like they're maggots. They're maggots, and I'm just like every time I see maggots, I just cringe because it's like what comes with maggots.
Right.
Exactly.
Was it the girl drinking her drink full of maggots, or was it the guy
eating the pizza?
Yeah.
That was also funny and added on to my grossed out feeling of it, because I was like, this ain't the vibe, y'all. And just being, having a maggot shower on you, just a new fear unlocked. New fear unlocked for real.
But after the dog eats Maurice, Jimmy's back. Jimmy Bones is back, ladies
baby.
and gentlemen. And with a vengeance. Okay. You have a cool villain when he comes back, says a one-liner, turns off the furnace, just leaving the gas running, hits a light, and just casually walks over to the switch, turns it on, while a big explosion happens, and he just keeps walking. You know you got a good villain.
But that's just why I feel like, while I did basically diss on Snoop Dogg's acting ability, his stage presence makes up for it.
Oh,
his
totally.
stage presence makes up for it immensely, because
I want that suit.
Yeah,
I want
that's a cosplay worthy suit. Like, people need to be cosplaying that more. For the sole fact of the matter, it's just like it just was. I felt it. The iconic just jumped out. Like, I can't think of anything other to say than just iconic. It's just very just badass. Almost it almost kind of gives a country villain reveal, whereas you have all the whole crap ton of calamity behind you, and then it's amongst the fire, you just have the person that just walks out unscathed by anything. And that was my favorite part. It's just everything is going unscathed. Everybody just running out the doggone maggot shower of a nightclub. It gets shut down all right, and everybody tries to go. And then whenever you have was it Cynthia and Maurice? Whenever Cynthia and Maurice goes,
Patrick. Maurice is dead.
Cynthia and Patrick, whenever they leave, and then they see Jimmy, Mr. Jimmy motherfucking Bones, like in the flesh,
Sort of.
in the flesh, as they say.
Yeah.
And
Flesh
then-
enough, you know, he's there.
And then you have the scene where he just throws the switchblade, and it just
Barely misses.
barely misses, and everybody goes out, and then everybody comes in. You see Pearl, and then all you see is Pearl and Jimmy Bones looking at each other.
And they make eye contact before that door shuts and the rest of the building just burns down.
It was
Ugh.
giving me, you know what was giving me? Do the Right Thing. The climax of Do the Right Thing, where the riot happens,
Okay.
and you have all of these things happen at the same exact time, and it just it's like it feels like almost like a homage to, you know, Do the Right Thing with the that fire scene, because it does give me the same energy as the riot scene from there, just in the aesthetic and just like utter chaos alone, and the implications of what all of that meant, what it means for going forward.
But it and you know, symbolically too, you could make the inference that like this is him sort of escaping from hell, like back into this plane of reality, right? And he's bringing hell with him, right? Like, because like the flames kind of lick around him as he's coming up the stairs, and whenever, you know, I think there's another shot where he's walking through flame, and even though the CG is kind of dated at this point, like the scene works, like like it just looks fucking dope, right? Like,
yeah, because your focus isn't even on the fire,
right?
Because a lot of movies back in that time, they were like, "Ooh, explosion,
yeah.
CGI flames," but "Ooh, explosion."
Yeah.
This was Jimmy Bones, and your eyes were focused on his reveal. It's his show at that point.
Yep, and it's a great payoff because because of the deliberate nature of the build-up, like we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. So when he finally shows up, and it actually works, like he has that physical presence, you're in. You're like, okay, I want to see Jimmy Bones fuck some people up now. Like, let's do it. Let's get to it.
So we're gonna get into the flashback part, but before that, I want to talk about Pam Greer's tarot reading. That comes after the flashback, I know, but it's a nice tie-in.
Oh, are you talking about with the?
She does
the tarot reading. I thought you were talking about the
No, that's in the flashback.
Okay, that was a good scene.
The tarot reading that she has, she does the past, the present, and the future.
Mm-hmm.
Her past is the throne, which basically prosperity, good times, wealth. The middle is couple, so love, relationships, yada yada yada, basically implying her and Jimmy. Future is death. And that, to me, is a perfect tie-in for Jimmy's backstory. Yeah, so the year is 1979.
Yep.
The neighborhood is popping. It's, it looks good. I mean, bright, sunny day. Everyone knows Jimmy. Everyone's outside. There's street vendors outside. There's people hanging out. Nothing bad whatsoever. Jimmy goes to his apartment, or his, I would call it headquarters, but it's the building.
Baby, that building looked beautiful. Like a black man's paradise, as I say. Like, and it's almost as if, like, now that I'm thinking about it, this is maybe a one hell of a reach, but it's almost as if, like, because of the sins of everyone around him, is that, like, everything's up in smoke and up in flames now. And it kind of gives me this, every time black people try to get a leg up on, trying to create that wealth and trying to have a prosperous life, being in luxury, being able to do what, white people can do, what, the dominant culture can do, it always gets taken away from us in ways that are really kind of messed up, whether it's like through fire or through some kind of death or betrayal.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a reach at all, and I think it is a fantastic metaphor for the blight of narcotics within the inner city, because that essentially is what the scene that reveal, because in the first few flashbacks where you see Jimmy Bones, you kind of think he might be a pimp, he may be a drug dealer, he may be doing all kinds of stuff. But in this scene is made very clear that he's above board and he's about community. He cares about the people around him, and it's working, right? But people within his own community, right? And this is that challenge that the black community always faces. They bring this thing to him as a business proposition, and Jimmy has the foresight to see that selling drugs is a really bad fucking idea, particularly if you're going to sell drugs to your own people, because he's making money off of the community, but he's making just enough to be prosperous.
And he gives just as much as he
And
takes.
he does, exactly. And he understands that is way more sustainable than turning everybody in the community into addicts, right? And then ultimately we see the result of that, right? Because when we first are introduced to the neighborhood, it is desolate, it is run down, it's dangerous, and it's where people go from other places to buy drugs, like literally drive in to buy drugs, you know, which is a fantastic way to make Jimmy a sympathetic character. Like that is to me what makes this film work.
Yeah, I mean, he's not a villain.
No,
in my opinion.
no, not
Even
at
though
all.
He plays the antagonist. He's not the villain of the film.
Yeah.
From what I see. But yeah, so you have the meeting, like you were saying, with it's Eddie Mack, the cop, and Patrick's dad. And basically, the cop is paid by Eddie Mack. Eddie Mack wants to bring drugs into the community because he knows if he can get behind, or if Jimmy Bones can get behind him, that's an easy push. That's an easy payday. If Jimmy Bones is saying, yeah, we can do this, everyone else is going to, follow along. Patrick's dad, however, is the one case it makes me angry, but it also is kind of heart-wrenching at the same time. He looks at Jimmy Bones and he wants what he has. He's jealous. He wants that money. And there's even a moment where Jimmy Bones talks to him and he's like, I would have given you anything. And he's like, I didn't want you to give me anything. I just wanted what you had. And
I understand the envy of it all, because it's like, as it's on, he worked very hard post, betrayal in order to escape from basically run away from his problems and to try to make something out of it. It's like, I feel like that was the calm the Jesus moment that he really needed for him to be like, oh, I gotta get the fuck out. And it kind of it paid in what happens later, but it kind of makes you understand, but at the same time, it's like, it's kind of a disappointing kind of thing.
Well, it's just a huge what if scenario where if he didn't have that jealousy, if he didn't have that want to himself pick himself up by the bootstraps and do what Jimmy's doing all on his little lonesome and actually accept the help that Jimmy would have offered him, the neighborhood probably would have prospered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see him at all as a sympathetic character, because to me his success is predicated on the destruction of the community that he left behind.
Yes.
Oh, with Jeremiah.
Yeah. He made a choice, and essentially he is sucking all the life of the community while not even living there anymore. And that is the evil, I think, that ultimately the film is trying to highlight, right? In a slightly subversive way. But it makes, like, again, you're not supposed to root for the antagonist, but in this case I was like, yeah, Jimmy, just go get them.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Jimmy says no, he's not going to have drugs in the neighborhood. He refuses. And Eddie Mack does not take that very well. And him and the officer put both his bodyguard, who is the apartment guy, put his bodyguard and him at gunpoint and force him to try crack. And I don't know if it was the high or if it was Jimmy just, angry at this point, wants him out of his building. But he pulls his switchblade out, cuts the cop, and
I'm gonna blame it on the high, cause
I'm gonna say a mixture of both.
because
Yeah.
I think he was already like pissed off, but I think the high like amplified his pissed offness because it's like it's fucking crack. Crack make you do some weird ass shit, especially if it was laced, which we don't know if it's laced, but I'm just gonna assume it's laced because of the the cop.
Mac.
Because it's Eddie Mac. I'm gonna assume that bitch is laced.
I just like story-wise, I like to think that he tried it and knew how dangerous it was. And even if it would have cost him his life, wanted to try and get rid of this cancer that would have been for his neighborhood.
Yeah. And I mean, he was forced to do it at gunpoint. So, I mean, he's in a bad mood already. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, he cuts the cop, and the cop and Eddie Mac unload on him. And the witnesses are Patrick's dad, the bodyguard, and
Pearl, who
Pearl
walks in at like mid shot. I'm like, oh, I felt bad for her because like she walked in mid shot and just had to see her man just on the floor just dying, and fuck that cop. You're trying to get her to fucking stop screaming. I would have.
Oh yeah,
Ooh.
that angered me a lot. Where he just kept telling her to shut up as she's over her dying lover's body. Ugh.
You're a bad cop and a misogynist, bitch. Pick a struggle. Fuck. That leads into basically him. Everybody rallying around. I'm gonna say Jimmy Pesto, Jimmy Bones.
They're not really rallied around.
I mean,
the
what I mean.
Puts them at gunpoint.
That's what I meant by rallying around.
Instead of just him and Mac being implicated in the murder, he all gives them the switchblade, so their prints and stab wounds would match. So everyone's implicated in the murder, so no one can speak.
Right.
And that is really shitty.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can tell the betrayal just like on his face, and just like how it was a heartbreaking scene because like building up to this point, you've seen how everybody has been post this incident and how everyone has had to live, and seeing how everything basically started, like how you can say the events of this film basically like started. It makes you just feel sad for all of these characters for basically having to betray their best friend and like the person that they relied on the most. But it's also like, damn, y'all are really selfish for y'all to just like choose your own lives over potentially saving another. Because I do kind of feel like somebody would have been fast enough in order to like, get one up on Eddie Mac or the cop.
Well, I mean, Jimmy says it to his former bodyguard as well. He's like, you could have died with me, but you made that choice,
And the gun was right there. Like he could have done something with the switchblade, like turn it over on him, and like I don't know. There could have been a heroic ass scene right there, but that's just me.
At the same time, it's easy to sit there and say that stuff when you're not in that situation.
Yeah,
true.
So
that is true.
But I mean, Jimmy has a good point, but also logically, you're not in that situation. You're not the one being held at gunpoint.
Right. But to me, that shows the slippery slope of the initial decision to think that selling drugs in this neighborhood is a good idea. Like at that is the point where it's all fucked up anyway. Like there's no going back. Like, when you align yourself with a dirty cop and drug dealers, it's probably not going to go well for you, right? Like initially it might, but at some point you are going to get your comeuppance.
Yeah. But yeah, that's our backstory. That is the time.
Also, ripping.
Oh, yeah.
That was just humiliating.
Yeah,
just ripping Pearl's dress from her, leaving her in her underwear,
and burying it with Jimmy.
That just was not it. That was not it at all. Like, bro, pick a struggle. That just was fucked up to me. So, very fucked up.
Yeah. That's Jimmy's backstory. That is the connection between Eddie Mac, the cop, Pearl, and the bodyguard and the dad, apartment guy and the dad. And then we just have the best part of the movie. The greatest part of the movie is Jimmy Bones going around acting his revenge.
One last thing though, remember the her reading his palm and talking about how his lifeline, like she basically was like
she foresaw his death.
Yeah, predicting his death, and
begged him not to take the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that was also an important scene.
Yeah.
That we could have talked about for like a second, but I just wanted to point that out.
No, that's fine. I forgot about it. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Jimmy Bones fucking shit up.
First victim is the bodyguard, and yeah, we kind of already talked about that, but yeah, he gets him.
Yeah. And again, we veer into much more fantastic territory here because it goes off the rails a little bit here, and I think it works. It's not so much of a tonal shift that you're completely out of it, but you are like, I spent a lot of time going like, did I just see that? Like that was buck wild,
No, there's some really good moments. My favorite, hands down, is when he goes to Eddie Mac. That's his next victim after the bodyguard. Is he runs into his crew, and I don't even know what he does. He just kind of like waves his hand, and then the camera cuts to a wall that they're standing next to, and it's a perfect silhouette bloodstain.
Yeah.
I agree. That was great CGI work, y'all. Great CGI work. That was totally sarcasm. But
no, it was great.
I do think that going off the rails was I think perfectly acceptable at this point, because it goes from like a regular haunted house theme to just full on like haunted house to Stranger Things. That's the best comparison, because it does go from like, we're just doing a haunted house kind of thing, to like, we're basically going to the upside down. And I, not even gonna lie, I was here for it, because the film, like right when the film picks up, I was like, okay, this is fine. And then it's like, you get to the nightclub scene, and you're just like, oh, things are getting real. And then it goes off the rails, because like it goes to supernatural horror. Like once supernatural horror gets introduced as an element in this film, you take everything that you thought about this film and just kind of throw it out the window, because this is almost like a completely different film, which I think is good, because especially with Robert Dickerson, who's may or may not be known at this point, this is riding off Snoop Dogg's name alone, like in promotion, all of that. So I feel like in order to keep people's attention, you have to give like some kind of thing to keep us going throughout the third act, because like the third act is the strongest act of the film.
It's the best. It's
and
so good.
And there are times where the second act could have faltered, but I think it was still because of Snoop Dogg that it just like it kept on going.
Yeah, and I think too, like this was in an era where casting hip hop superstars in film was a big deal. Like DMX crossed over. Busta Rhymes inexplicably was in a Halloween sequel, and is one of my favorites because it's like the worst movie ever made.
Michael Myers' ass using kung fu.
Yeah, trick or treat, motherfucker. But I think
Raw Digga was in 13 Ghosts. Yeah,
and I think a lot of audiences, like, they wanted that payoff. They wanted something that was like over the top, because if you've ever watched a horror film with a black audience, like, it's an experience, right? So like there is merit in like amping up the audience by like just going batshit crazy and having people hooting and hollering in the seats, because they'll do that, right? Black people talk to the camera or talk to the screen even in the most serious, like by the numbers horror film. Like, so giving them a movie where a decapitated head continues to speak, I mean, come on, man, that's good shit.
It doesn't take you out the film either because of the implications of what's going on.
Well, it's already like, it's just that tone. You hit that tone because it really does. It's very much a serious horror movie until Jimmy Bones is introduced, or the dog vomits maggots, and then it's camp at that point.
Yeah.
But it works so well. So, but yeah, going into the talking head, Jimmy Bones kills Eddie Mack, but he kills his girlfriend first, and I love the symbolism of her being in the trash can. He killing her, I was just like, white trash. So,
Oh wow, I didn't even think about that.
I liked it. I thought it was cute.
I was kind of thinking more so like how a lot of like black men go for white women once they get a little comeuppance.
I mean, that's overall, but like her death and him finding her body in the trash can is
that was wild.
White trash.
But I'm gonna like speak on this for like a second. Like, especially when the gay community in Hollywood, black men always end up with white boyfriends. So it's kind of like seeing that with like, black men and white women, how like they think, oh, white women is somehow better or something and more desirable or whatever. Because it's like all of the black men who ended up with like a woman besides, Patrick is with a white woman. So I'm like, okay, that's a curious choice, but I get, Patrick's famous case. I'm just like, damn, you just really wanted a snow bunny to fuck, didn't you, Eddie Mack?
That is interesting you brought that point up, because now that you said that, I see that now. With Eddie Mack, he's with Snowflake, and with Patrick's dad, he's with, I don't even think she was given a name, but the mom.
No, yeah, just mom, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't notice that until you said something, but yeah, that's an interesting parallel.
Yeah, I feel like it means more, and I have to think about what it actually means, but that's just what I noticed.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, but yeah, he kills Eddie Mack after that point, and using Eddie Mack's head, keeping it alive, he gets him to call the cop, or talk to the cop on the phone, to meet him at a particular place.
Hell. Duh. We're meeting him in hell.
Yeah. He forces him to. The cop shows up. Jimmy Bones is there. Of course, he tries to shoot Jimmy. Nothing fucking happens.
But there's a fact that he lured him with crack.
No. He forces him to smoke crack.
But
he sees all the crack there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He was like, "What is this?" And it's like, you can tell that something about to happen.
And he forces him to smoke crack. Puts his hand over his mouth. Moves his hand, and now he's got no mouth.
Great CGI, y'all.
Cuts him, right, that was awful, but yeah, cuts him open, and as he cuts him open, the smoke starts bellowing out. I did like that.
And also, it's a parallel, because it was a cop that basically caused Jimmy Bones to mile. So, of course, the cop is gonna get, I even got his name, Bitch or some, Bitch, there you go, he's gonna be named Bitch. Bitch, the one who deserves the most brutal death because of it.
Yeah.
He deserves the most brutal death because he's the one who fucking killed Jimmy in the first place. So I'm like, he deserved every bit of carving that he got.
Yeah.
Shit.
So yeah, the bodyguard's dead, cop's dead, Eddie Mack's dead. He keeps the heads though. He keeps the heads alive, and the explanation is he's going to send their souls. Like he's keeping the heads alive to keep their souls, essentially. That leads to the kids, Patrick, Bill, Taya, I think, Taya, and Cynthia and Pearl. They all go to Patrick's home to get the dad because they know he's next. Unfortunately, they're a little late. Dad already got took. So that leads to our climax, where they go on a rescue mission to save Patrick's dad. Taya and the mom stay home, so it's just Bill, Patrick, Cynthia, and Pearl, and they come back to the building. And that's when we get your upside down world.
The City of the Dead.
City of the Dead.
Which was already foreshadowed beforehand, but we get everything upside down in this. Also, I forgot, according to color, the use of the blues and the reds in the cop's death scene were also magnifique. And this continued use of like color imagery goes on into the upside down, where everything is very just pink, very just like passionate, very just bright, vibrant pink.
On the way to the building, we get our Deus Blood Machina.
Oh yeah, blood
Where it's never
machina.
been mentioned before, but the mom's all of a sudden like, oh yeah, blood is the connection,
Right.
the soul connection. So there's got to be blood in the building.
Honestly, I
Get
feel
rid
like
of
it
the
was.
blood, you get rid of Jimmy Bones.
I feel like it was foreshadowed because of the whole like explanation that Cynthia gave about like how there's like one streets, two streets. You know, one city has the city of the dead underneath, like has the upside down. So I
that
was
has
like,
nothing to do with blood, though.
it has nothing to do with blood,
The
but
blood
like
part kinda
it
came out of
relates
nowhere.
to the concept that we're going into. How it relates because you know it has everything has this polar opposite, and then the blood connects everything. And how he's like everybody has I think 3 parts. She said
2 parts.
I think I heard 3. I can't remember. Anyway, that's how I feel like it relates. But you know, I
just
connect
kinda-
different things.
I kind of
because,
felt
yeah.
like they wrote themselves in a corner and was like, how are we going to get rid of Jimmy Bones?
Yeah, I think this felt like, you know, and this is unfortunately typical in the horror genre. You sometimes have resolutions that don't quite make sense. It's more of a resolution of convenience more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, you're already invested in it. I was already invested in it. It was fine. Yeah.
It was fine until Jimmy lost.
Yeah.
we get Bill's death.
Mm-hmm.
He sees Maurice. He goes after him, but if it is Maurice, it's not the good Maurice. It's the other Maurice. It's the upside down Maurice.
Mm-hmm.
Bill gets got.
I feel like the death was wasted.
Yeah,
I think they just needed somebody to get rid
like
of.
just there to add to the kill count.
Yeah,
for sure.
I felt
for sure.
bad for him.
And then we get Patrick and Cynthia. The mom's already gone at this point. Pearl's already got trapped in the elevator and goes up to Jimmy because Jimmy's already sucked his dad. So the dad gets sucked into, I'm going to assume this. It's like you were saying with Hellraiser. It's almost like to me a punishment dimension.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
He puts Eddie Mac in there. He puts the cop in there, and now he's toying with the dad.
Yeah, the wall of torment, essentially. Yeah.
Which I kind of like that he tortures the dad a little bit because honestly everything goes back to the dad. It's the dad's fault. He's the one that brought the guys there in the first place. So I do like that, and now Jimmy and the mom are dancing in this beautifully set room of just red lit candles, and that was awesome. I love that.
Yeah,
and especially when like he gives her the dress, and they do like a quick little camera spin where it shows her as her old self back in the 70s, looking gorgeous as ever. And Patrick and Cynthia show up. And that's where things start going bad for Jimmy.
Yeah, and things start to go bad very quickly. Very, very quickly. Because Cynthia basically goes into, like, Luther Vandross will be proud. Dance with my father.
It's revealed that Jimmy Bones is Cynthia's dad. And she kind of goes into a trance and starts dancing with the dad while the mom stands there. What is Patrick doing? Patrick was doing something.
Patrick, honestly, I feel like he
was getting attacked by his dad.
Yeah, he was being drawn in by his dad.
That's right.
And then he gets attacked. And I think one thing we failed to realize is that it was already previously revealed by this point that Jimmy Bones was Cynthia's father.
Oh yeah.
But it basically gets, shown.
Yeah.
And as someone who doesn't even know their father, kind of hit home a little bit. It's like, damn, I never knew, and now I get a chance to see him.
Yeah, it makes the heartbreak of
it makes the heart.
Little,
it makes it more palpable.
Yeah.
But that was a great scene, and then you can tell that there's like a kind of like a almost internal fight going on with Pearl because like. You can tell that she knows that this ain't right, but like she can't help but be drawn in because of the past and like probably like a mixture of love and past guilt.
And I do like the symbolism of like she looks in the mirror and sees her old self, like her future self.
Yeah.
But she herself is stuck in the past. I like that symbolism of her trying to fight to not be stuck in the past, to actually go back to her current time.
Yeah, she sees who she really is and sort of what has become of all of them because of this terrible journey that they're on, and then she ultimately makes the decision. She's the one who finally brings down Jimmy.
Yeah, someone soaked her in kerosene off screen, and she takes a candle and lights herself on fire.
Honestly, with that blood-soaked dress, I'm pretty sure that dress was made of a highly, highly flammable material, because it's the 70s. Everything was flammable.
Wasn't.
But she wasn't
lit on fire, dude.
She wasn't, but like
she blew up.
She went up.
Baby,
she blew the fuck
that was
up.
like this. We were in the city of dead. That was a spiritual fire.
That's true.
That was a very spiritual fire.
Like
and using fire as a form of, I think, sacrifice, as I think she was trying to cleanse herself of that sin, of that guilt, as well as trying to save her, not only her kid, because she said she has nothing else left to lose.
Right.
She had was saving everybody else, and then she knew what she had to do. And ultimately, we knew that not only that the blood was gonna get rid of him, but she had to go as well, because of the fact that she was part of that sin. So that that almost said the original sin, that sin. So.
And now that the connection between that world and the real world is basically burning, basically being destroyed, the link between the two is being destroyed. So Patrick and Cynthia have to get out of there. And Cynthia is actually really sad about it. She's like, no, that's my dad. Like, it takes some very... Yeah. It takes Patrick pushing her to get moving. And
that was exemplified in, I think, the scene where they had to fall, because you don't see her, for a split second, you don't see her after he falls.
Yeah, no, because it's actually kind of clever where they show, he jumps, but as he jumps, she backs away. Like, she goes off camera for a minute, and then she comes back and she jumps.
But it's worth noting that at this point, Jimmy is also up in flames, having embraced his love, and I'm not really sure what his plan was there, but I
think by that point, I think it was like fire ex machina.
Yeah.
or I kind of see it as the past burning for the future to coexist. So the flame is getting rid of the entire past.
I think it's getting rid of the past, and it's basically
old for the new.
Yeah, it's basically an elaborate form of closure for me.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of closure for, all of this built up guilt, all of this built up having your whole life change and kind of living in this weird sense of I'm not gonna say nostalgia. It's just you're just stuck. Eddie Mack was stuck with the way that he dressed. Old boy was stuck having the responsibility to look at having to watch the house all the time with the gun and shooting that damn dog.
No one was able to move on.
No one was able to move on, and the only person who was trying to force himself to move on was Jeremiah, and it did not work in the end.
Because the kids went back. So even though he moved on, his past was still catching up to him.
Do you think it's a bit of fate?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So Cynthia and Patrick make it out, but as they make it out, Patrick has a sigh of relief, but Cynthia's acting weird. Acting a little strange. Maybe something happened when she walked off camera for a little bit. And Patrick starts to notice. Patrick turns around and is like, hey, are you okay? And she vomits maggots on him.
Yes.
And what was that? What was that thing that Jimmy Bones said? Dog eat dog?
Yeah, dog eat dog.
She did say that.
Dog eat dog?
Yeah.
And also worth noting the picture. The picture that Pearl has carried with her this whole time. The one that looked at her. And I think it did the same thing same thing to
Patrick.
To Patrick. I forgot his name right now. It happens to Patrick, and I think a lot of it was a result of him having some of those souls in him, with the souls going throughout his body and all of that. And I think he now kind of has a lot of that stuff going on, and now we don't know what happens, because the last thing we see is another fucking maggot shower.
Yeah.
The fucking shit. Maggot shower ends the film, and you're just what the fuck is that?
I can honestly say that's the most maggots I've ever seen in one film. A lot of maggots.
There was a scene that I thought about while watching all of these maggots from, I believe it was the The Living Daylights or License to Kill. It was a Timothy Dalton Bond film
Oh,
where they were
are
hiding
good
drugs in giant crates of maggots.
oh, which was that License to Kill? Where
I think it might have
Benicio
been.
del Toro was the henchman.
Yeah, it was when he was going up against the cartel, and they were
Yeah.
hiding.
I think
the,
that's.
the
I'm pretty
drugs.
sure that's License to Kill.
Yeah.
Those are actually good. Those are underrated Bond films.
Absolutely,
Gross.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no, a lot of people, they talk about the Connery era or whatever.
No,
I really don't like the James Bond movies
I don't
other than
like-
Timothy Dalton and Daniel Craig.
Those are my two.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree. I think the
yeah.
other stuff
Feel
is a little
validated.
goofy. Yeah,
I mean, I grew up in the Daniel Craig era, so that's kind of all I have.
That's all
and
you
besides,
that's all you
That's all you
need.
need.
yeah, besides
all
like
you need.
know
If you
seeing
do
Halle
wanna
Berry with her
branch out-
titties out.
If you do want to
That one
branch out,
time.
you can get the campiness from Bronson, or you
Yeah.
can get more of the hardcoreness from Dalton.
From Dalton, yeah.
Just don't go further back.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is 2001's Ernest Dickerson directed Bones. Final thoughts, anybody?
Yeah, I want to know what your final thoughts are, Rundle.
I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought it would. It's funny because back before we had memes, my buddies and we would make fun of the trailer for that film. Because we used to, at the job that I worked at right out of college, there was a guy named Jimmy, and the movie Jimmy Bones came out at the same time, so we used to call him Jimmy Bones. And we always used to joke around and go, "Jimmy Bones, is that you? We killed you," which is a line from the film. So it's weird now kind of coming back full circle and actually watching the film and going, you know what, this is actually really good. And it has some really meaningful social commentary in it.
Yeah, it really does. I watched this movie when I was a kid. I just thought it was goofy fun. I just liked it. And I remember everyone kind of shitting on it. It was like, you actually like that Snoop Dogg film?
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, looking at it now as an adult, because I haven't seen it since I was a kid, looking at it now as an adult, I have good taste.
It feels like this film itself is a modern urban legend in the Black community, because I had a conversation with my partner actually about this. It was like, oh, I forgot that thing existed. And it's like, you don't really think about like this era of Black, cinema, let alone, Black horror. Because when you think of like I call it millennial Black cinema, I'm just going to call it like that. You think of comedies, you think of stuff like, Head of State, Black Knight, The Nutty Professor. You think of comedies.
Friday films.
The Friday films. You think of like everything that's related to comedy when it comes to Black people. Like, Black films. You don't really think of other genres when it comes to this era, when it comes to like Black directors and Black, actors. So it was very refreshing to see a film like from this era of horror coming from a Black director and having a majority Black cast and have such an emphasis on Blackness and the like a lot of like the relevant topics when it comes to Blackness. It felt very refreshing, but also it's like seeing the tropes of horror but with Black people doing it. Okay, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Not even gonna lie, because like Black audiences,
But
like
that's
you
all
said,
we want.
Yeah,
It's just representative figures. Like, I love horror films. The Exorcist is my favorite film, but there are no Black people in The Exorcist,
Mm-mm.
So it's fun to see a horror film like Get Out, like the Candyman remake, where Blackness is shown with a certain level of authenticity. And I think this film somehow manages to do that, even though it is just a starring vehicle for a 90s hip-hop icon.
Yeah, and what I kind of find sad is the topical message that they were having back in 2001 is still relevant to this day.
Oh, yeah.
And I find that sad that we're still having an issue like they were having in 2001. Still having those same issues, still having that same discussion. Like,
yep.
It's heartbreaking.
Well, and that is why it is important for more Black filmmakers to get opportunities, because these are stories that we all know, and when you see something like George Floyd happen, the George Floyd's murder, you know, everyone was sort of outraged and surprised except the black community, because we were like, yeah, have you all not been paying attention to what's been going on in this country? You know what I mean?
Well, and
So
I watch a lot of audit YouTube videos.
yeah,
Auditing has been going on for years, but since the George Floyd thing, it's booming. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people that I subscribe to have gotten up to the hundreds of thousands, even the millions. And it's like, this has been going on for a while. Like video auditing has been going on since YouTube's beginning.
right.
And it's just now getting the recognition. Like, why is it just now being talked about?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
It just really goes to show about the fact that we just need more. We need more when it comes to black representation in any kind of genre.
absolutely.
And for blackness to just be as normal in these kinds of settings,
Right.
rather than, just being like, oh, this is a concept that we're going to explore. We're going to be like, so urban, kind of shit like that.
No. Yeah.
And I was talking about earlier with Get Out, a lot of times when it comes to like a lot of like, black exploitation films, especially once everything post Shaft, and a lot of like the white directed ones, they lean into like hood shit, like lean into like different to like blackness, but like what the media sees in blackness. And
yeah.
baby, we're not a monolith. Like, not all of us are gonna relate to hood shit.
Well,
Right.
It's like what we were talking about last week with, other than black exploitation, there are no black directed horror movies in the 80s. I couldn't find any. There's only a handful in the 90s, a handful in the millennia. There's horror movies directed towards black audiences, but it's a white producer, a white director, white writers. It's exactly like you said. It's basically just, hood junk food. And it's disheartening.
Well, and some of it is very well intentioned. I mean, you look at like the original Candyman is a perfect example, written by based on a story by a white British writer, directed by a white man, and essentially told through the lens of a white female protagonist, which is why the remake / sequel is a perfect juxtaposition that makes the original better, because it tells essentially the same story or explores the same mythology, but through a black lens. So for me, I'm less disheartened. I'm more optimistic now than I was a few years ago, because the opportunities are there, and hopefully we'll get more movies like Bones. We'll get more, movies like Get Out and Us and Candyman and stuff like that. It's fun to be a black genre nerd right now.
I think one more thing is like, okay, you know how we got horror icons, right? I wish that, Jimmy Bones or Seaman can be amongst those same like horror icons.
Well, Candyman is, but Jimmy Bones, yes, I agree with you, 100%.
We'll get there.
We're getting there, but yeah, I feel like that we all we have is two that we can talk about.
If it makes you feel any better, the first Xenomorph was a almost an 8-foot tall Nigerian man.
Yeah.
So if that makes you feel any kind of better.
Only
He doesn't
a
get
little bit.
any recognition whatsoever. No one ever talks about him, but he was a Nigerian-born man.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
And we also have cool shit like the Sunken Place. Like that's
Yeah.
We
and
have
that is
that concept.
that is part of American lexicon, the American lexicon right now, and that's from Jordan Peele.
You're right, because on one hand we have Wakanda, but even though that was technically made by white people, and then you're right. So like we have modern black mythology now.
Oh yeah.
That I think is also really cool, because we can create our own mythology based on the fact that we had some based off our old African, heritages, which ones that we do know, but now as like black Americans, we really only have recent stuff to go off of, and maybe like a couple of things like Seaman, but like we don't really have that much of a mythology that people can just like be stands of anymore.
Yeah.
And I wish we had stuff like that because, like, there's a lot of horror icons that go from classic horror to modern slashers to shit like Trick or Treat. And we don't really have the same as, you know, black horror people.
Yeah.
And I wish we had that. But we do, but we don't. It's like not nearly as substantial as the whole horror lexicon, at least in America and in the zeitgeist that is the internet. So that's my final thoughts. Rating. If you want to even rate this. So we kind of go through either whatever arbitrary rating system you want, from chicken nuggets to stars to, you know, whatever thoughts you may have that constitutes a rating. So what do you think is your rating for it?
I will give it 8.5 pounds of maggots out of 10.
I like that. Yes, that's a good one.
I'm gonna give that. I'm giving on the color wheel about 4 out of 5 colors on the color wheel.
I was very much prepared to give this like a 3.5 stars, but this was just me going, I really liked this as a kid. It was really campy. I can't wait to show this to Jay. But after watching it and watching how well it stands up just story-wise, I'm easily giving this a 4. You know, it may even be a 4.5 just because it's got some rewatchability to it.
Yeah, agree. It's fun, and it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, good sir, for joining us. This was awesome.
Yeah, I had a blast. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for that wonderful use of $1,500.
It was free. I did this for free.
Yeah, no, it was actually free. When me and Wendell are really cool, so I'm glad that you joined in. As for someone who's as busy and honestly, I can say kind of important to the local film industry, I really appreciate you for coming in. Is Mr. Wendell Riley, everyone.
Yeah, tell the folks where they can find you and what you're up to.
I'm an old dinosaur. I mean, I'm on Instagram. I think I'm like Wendell Riley 7 or something like that. I'm terrible at this stuff, man.
I have a Facebook and I hardly get on it. So
yeah,
okay.
I just like making things. I'm working on a documentary film series right now, highlighting black creatives in the South, which is a class that doesn't get a lot of attention, particularly folks like us who like horror films and stuff like that. I mean, I could go toe to toe and talk horror all day, which is, you know, we're kind of like on the fringes, you know. So
yeah, I would love to do that one day. I have 400 plus horror movies, so
nice.
A lot. He's sitting behind his whole horror collection right now, and
There's some superhero movies down there, just because eventually horror will all be in there. Yes.
So yeah, there's a lot of horror movies that he would love to talk about, which you should keep on listening to us, like our videos, give us a thumbs up on YouTube,
subscribe,
please,
hit that bell notification.
Yeah, please subscribe, please rate us, tell us what you think, give us engagement, because it helps us grow and helps us get more really cool guests on. Yeah, so that's that's the episode for today with Bones.
Join us next week where we're going to be talking about the 1999 extremely cult classic Death by Temptation.
Nice.
So good. I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. I'm kind of deterred by it because it is a Trauma production. Don't like Trauma, but I'm giving this a chance. So join us next week. Watch the movie. Prepare yourself. But until then, I have been Heath.
And I have been Jay.
And I've been Wendell.
And this has been Host of Horrors.